Facing relationship issues and not sure how to reach out? Well, this video could be the one for you. Welcome back to the Mind Strong Edge. Today's letter is from a gentleman. He's been in a relationship for 12 years. It's not going terribly well, and he's just asking the question, where do I start? How do I start reaching out for a little bit of help? And this is a classic starting point for anyone. It's very difficult to know where do you start, particularly if you don't understand what the problem may be to begin with. So let's take a look at his letter. Dear Mind Strong Edge team, I'm writing because I feel a bit lost in my marriage, and I'm not sure how we got here. My wife and I have been together for over 12 years, and we've been through a lot. We've built a life together, we've raised our kids and shared countless memories, but lately it feels like we're drifting apart, and I don't know how to find my way back to the relationship we once had. What we'll do in this is actually quite a short letter, but we'll just keep on reading through, and we'll just talk about the approach that a lot of counsellors will have towards counselling for relationships, and how it differs from individual, and how you can benefit from both approaches to talking about your problem. He continues, it's not easy for me to reach out like this. It feels like parts of me feel like maybe I should just tough it out, like so many other people around us seem to do. Friends talk about their marriage in casual ways as though they're just getting on with it. And it makes me wonder if I'm overthinking things. Yes, you could be, but the alarm bells are going off. So it pays to pay attention to those. And it sounds like what you're doing is you've got yourself on the right track. He continues, it seems like they don't dwell on the bad days or let the growing distance between them get in the way. I sometimes catch myself wondering if they just push through and hope things will improve on their own. It's always very, very easy to become very aware of the positive sides of other people's lives, because that's what we put out there. We don't actively promote the things that are going wrong. And particularly as a guy, you very rarely have that conversation with your male friends about the things that are going wrong. The exception, of course, being is that if you join a men's group, and there's plenty of men's support groups. Here in Australia, there's groups such as the Men's Table. You can look that up. And a few other groups, men's sheds. Support groups where men feel like they can talk about these things, like what is normal, and get a little bit of balance. What you're describing there is probably an unbalanced impression of where you lie relative to your friends. And again, we talk about this quite often on this channel, is the difference between where we think we should be and where we see that or at least where we think we are. And that difference, and you're starting to allude to that here. And inside that gap falls unhappiness and discontentment. So without digging too deeply, but certainly suggesting to you that if you are comparing yourself to your friends and only really paying attention to those nice things that your friends have, because they are attention-grabbing things, it may be creating a false sense of distance between where you see yourself and where you think you should be in relation to your friends, and therein lies the feeling of being lost in that middle ground. He continues, and then there's the example set by my own parents. Okay, growing up, I don't remember them being very close. They never really got along in any obvious way, but they stayed together regardless through thick and thin. This is really interesting because it doesn't really say how old you are, but there's every chance that your parents grew up in a different, or from a different generation, but they grew up in an era where, or maybe there was religion at play as well, of course, and that will keep people together through very unhealthy relationships and marriages. But you may have only seen one part of that, particularly if your parents only really showed you one side of them, which is very traditional and to be expected. It was as if they believed that love meant sticking it out, no matter how tough things got. Well, that's the reason. Here I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that that's the reason for marriage. Marriage is the thing that does stick you together and keep. It's supposed to keep you together through thick and thin in the face of the community. because without it, you have the option to move on. But with the contract, it's for better or worse, and that's and it's very, very easy to confuse love and marriage as being the same thing. They're actually not. If you sit down for a moment and actually think about that for a second, you'll see that they're two very distinctly different things. Maybe they were happy in their own way. Well, maybe they were. But that's not what I want for myself and my wife. Now, you say maybe they were happy in their own way. That suggests to me that maybe that's something that you didn't really see. That's a part of them that you didn't really see. So you've only really modeled around the parts that you have seen, which is the sticking it out, and perhaps the confusion between love and the contract of marriage might be a confusing factor for you, maybe. I want us to be able to talk, to feel connected, to still feel something for each other beyond a sense of duty, absolutely. But every time I try to bring it up, I feel this wall between us. It's like we're strangers in our own home, passing each other by, exchanging only basics to keep things running. Well, you're certainly in that mechanical stage of the relationship, and we'll talk about that in a sec. I've been hesitant to seek help mostly because I don't know where to start or what to expect. The idea of opening up to someone about our relationship feels a bit overwhelming, and it does. It does for guys. It is difficult to comprehend sitting down with someone who you don't know and telling them all about it. However, the counselling relationship, that's what I'll refer to it as, is one where it is treated in the strictest confidence. It's a place that exhibits a thing called unconditional positive regard, or at least that's how it's supposed to work, in that the counsellor is actually trained to be very, very open to you to use your own words, your own language, and to approach the situation at your own pace. They're certainly not there to judge you as you start to open up. You've just said, I worry about being judged, as if maybe our problems aren't bad enough to need help. Or that a counsellor might see our struggles as too ordinary, too insignificant. And again, here, the whole concept of unconditional positive regard means that nothing falls into those categories. If it's enough for you to want to talk about it, then it's enough for your counsellor to actually give you the time to actually sit and listen and understand where you're actually coming from. I don't know if I'm ready to be fully vulnerable. You don't have to be fully vulnerable at all. You've already written your thoughts down, and it wouldn't be anything wrong with taking literally this letter into a session and just reading this out as a starting point, exactly what you've done with us. This is my life and my family, and the thought of laying everything bare is uncomfortable, even if it's supposed to be helpful. Yes, it is, because it does make you feel exposed. It may make you feel like you have lost some power over the situation, but it's actually the opposite. You're actually doing something to take control by actually having a conversation with someone and allowing that conversation to lift the hood, if you excuse the metaphor, to actually lift the hood and have a look at that engine bay inside and just see where something might be disconnected, needs to be plugged back in, or maybe there's something else that you hadn't noticed, but you still need to lift the hood and have a look under there, rather than just keep driving and just hope that clunking sound is going to go away by itself. He continues, but I can't ignore the reality that things aren't improving on their own. Well, that's your anchor point right there. It's not going to anchor on its own. I feel like I'm at the point where I have to take a chance on reaching out if I want to see any change. Yes, my wife deserves better than the partner who feels distant, and I know I owe it to both of us to try something different. I guess I just want to know if there's a way to do this that feels respectful of what we were both at, something that's not rushed or forced. I want to start somewhere, even if it's small, and maybe get some clarity on how we got here and what we can do to find our way back to each other. Well, look, there's your incentive right there. That last paragraph is spot on. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Any guidance you would have on making our first step would mean a lot. The first step, you've literally taken the first step, and that is to examine your thoughts and where you're at. You may not have complete context and clarity on that right now, and don't expect that you should have just by putting something down. But you've stated the fact, and what's good about this is that you've actually stated a goal about what you want to do, about the fact that your wife deserves a better partner. Don't put it all on your own shoulders. And the reason I say that is because when you're working with a counsellor who is looking, let's say that you, well, there's a difference. Like the individual counselling, you will sit down and you'll have that talk where you just lay it out, and it's just you and a counsellor or someone that's listening to you that is giving you the empathy that you deserve and giving you the space to talk and offering understanding with that sort of unconditional regard for where you're coming from or where you may be coming from. And that's a really good place to start. Even if you're looking for couples, some people jump straight into couples therapy. And what they miss is they miss that opportunity just to have that one person listen to just them. Because the dynamic completely changes in couples therapy, and we'll talk about that now so you get an understanding of it, is that when you are sitting in the room with a counsellor, it's your time. It is absolutely your time. Obviously, it's something that you're paying for, but it is absolutely your time, and that counsellor's job is to allow you to find the space and the words and the feelings that you need to at the time. And it may take a little while to do that, particularly if you haven't done it before, but it's their job. You know, these are people like ourselves that are trained to actually to really listen, to really actively listen, and to guide you to where you think you're going, to that place where you can see, have some clarity. Now, and that's a great thing to do, because you can do that without the feeling that someone else is in the room with you and you need to moderate what it is that you say. You can be very, very open in the one-on-one individual counselling environment. And I always suggest to couples that want to come to us for couples counselling that that's the first thing that they do. They just see the counsellor individually. It may even be for just one session, or it may be for a couple, but do that before you then go into the couples counselling. It also gives the counsellor a really good picture of where these two people are as individuals. And the reason I say that is because couples counselling, traditionally speaking, is not about just having two people sitting there talk at each other or over each other or put their case forward one at a time, and the counsellor simply be a mediator between the two. The way that, at least in our practice and the way that a lot of others do it, is that we view the relationship as a separate entity, and the three of us, myself and the couple, will sit back as a team and examine the relationship, almost as if it was a child in the room with us, playing on the mat with some Lego, and we're talking about that relationship as if it's a separate thing to us that we are contributing to, that we're nurturing, that we're working on, but it's not all of us. A lot of people feel that, and this is you say at the end here about you want your wife deserves a better partner, and yes, but you also need to realize that you deserve a better version of you as well. You're not in a relationship to give 100% of yourself to someone else. You have to look after yourself first in order to then be a good partner to someone else and be able to contribute to that relationship. So we always look at the relationship as a separate entity. We sit back as a team and we discuss how we feel about the relationship. Is it getting enough love? Is it getting enough attention? Is it healthy? What could we do together to give that relationship something more so it can grow and develop and flourish? But we see it as being another person or an entity other than just something that exists in the context of two people sitting across the room from each other. So have a think about that. That's where we would usually recommend people start, unless there is some complications. It doesn't sound like there are anything that would suggest a crisis here, but you're saying that you've been married for 12 years and you're feeling a bit lost. And that's a very, very common place. Again, confusing the love with the marriage can almost turn love into a mechanical thing, a duty, Guys like Jordan Peterson and psychologists such as that do a lot of work in this space. I think that he suggests something around 90 minutes a week of talk just about the mechanical side of the relationship before you can then get to the good stuff, the love and the romance. If you set aside a night a week to go out and have some adult time, but that's the only time you set aside, you still have to get through the mechanics of the family and the relationship and where you're at before you can then relax into that zone where you're just two people that are in love. So don't forget that it is a separate thing. The concept of and it's interesting that you draw the correlation with, or you bring up your parents and you never really saw a difference. It could be that that's just what you were exposed to because you were, and I hate to use this term, but a mechanical part of the family. You were part of the mechanics and the operation of the family. And maybe your parents were deeply in love, but you just never really exposed to that because you were inside a slightly different bubble, and they kept their they kept their love sort of as just something between them, as a lot of adults and parents would do. But also, I think it's worth thinking about that and going, have a real think about your parents and go, maybe I missed something. Maybe I was only really exposed to one side of my parents. We talk about this in other videos as well, is that the side of your parents that you're exposed to forms who you are, and it's very, very easy to have a misconstrued view of the world based on that, and that's basically becomes your law, and you end up propagating only one part of what you were witness to when you were young, between 6 and 14 or so. So have a think about that. But I think that, look, what I would say to you now is print this letter out and make an appointment for a individual counselling. I would say, I would be open about it with your partner or your wife, and say, I'm just going to go and see somebody, and then come back and be open about the experience, and maybe it could be something that she could do also. And then when you think you're ready, talk to that counsellor, if they're a couples counsellor, of course, as well. If they're not a couples counsellor, you'll need to find someone that is. That's quite important, to be honest, because it's a skill, and a lot of individual counsellors are not couples counsellors. We do both here, and it's a very, very different dynamic. It's very different, and it can very easily turn into catastrophe of ill-managed mediation, if I can put it that way. If the couples counselling session just becomes two people that are bringing their hostilities to the room for an hour and no one feels heard at the end of the session. That's not how we operate with couples counselling. It's very much about that third entity. It's the team, counsellor and the couple as a team having a look at that, lifting the hood on that relationship and go, let's have a look, what's going on in there? And are we putting enough into it? Where can we look at, nurturing this little child that we've created, much like you would your own actual children, and are we giving it enough operational support, and are we giving it enough love as well? Thank you so much for your letter. I really enjoyed that because it's a very, very common problem is where do you start? And I think you've made a great start. There's no real detail in there, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But hopefully you'll find someone that will, or you can do it yourself actually. Just sit back and think about those things, dig into what you've written here, and just have a real think about it. Think about, why do I feel that way about my parents? Why do I feel that way about my marriage? Why do I feel that way about the difference between love and marriage? Do I understand that they are not the same thing? One is a contractual, a contract that's designed to keep us together through thick and thin, and the other is something that you voluntarily contribute to, which of course is the love that you share. Thank you for your letter. I appreciate that, and I think that's opened up some interesting topics that you can take away, and I wish you all the best with pursuing the support. You may not even need couples counselling. You may find that you can get some tools with an individual visit, and you can go back and get to work. So there you go. If you'd like to write into us, you're more than welcome. There's an email address, which is help@mindstrongedge.com, and that's in the description for this YouTube channel. And we'd love to hear you. It might take a couple of 3 weeks for us to get around to your letter and have a read of it. We do read them cold and unedited. So this is the way we like to do it, because this is what you would get if you went into a session with an individual session with a counsellor. So we don't edit those, so we don't edit the videos as well. But in the meantime, this has been the Mind Strong Edge.